My name is Reese Donovan. I'm 31 years old, and I've always believed that if something is worth building, it should be built on truth. That night, I thought we were celebrating another solid year. Same Italian restaurant, same corner table, same waiter who already knew our order before we spoke. Evan smiled across from me, the way he always did, but it didn't reach his eyes. His phone stayed face down on the table, vibrating every few minutes like a nervous heartbeat. "You okay?" I asked casually, twirling pasta I had no appetite for. He nodded too fast. Yeah, just tired. Tired had become his favorite word lately. We'd been together 3 years. He'd been staying at my apartment almost every night for the last year. Not officially moved in, no paperwork, no shared lease, but his presence was everywhere. His shoes by the door, his coffee mug in my sink, his weight in my bed. That's why the distance felt so loud. Halfway through dinner, he put his fork down and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Reese, I need to tell you something." That tone, I recognized it instantly. My stomach tightened, but I stayed still. "Okay." He stared at the table, then finally met my eyes. "I've been struggling with something." I waited. "Remember Lila?" he asked. Of course I remembered. His college ex, 4 years together before me. The one he promised was ancient history. "She moved back 3 months ago," he continued. "We started talking again." The restaurant noise faded. Plates clinked somewhere far away. "How much talking?" I asked. He leaned in, lowered his voice, like secrecy made betrayal gentler. "I slept with her." Just like that. No build-up, no apology, just the truth dropped between breadsticks and wine glasses. "When?" I asked, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Last weekend, when I said I was staying at Mark's." Last weekend, when he'd come home distant, showered immediately, and told me he was exhausted. "Why?" I asked. He swallowed. I needed to know if I was really over her. There it was. "And," I said quietly. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "I'm not sure yet." "Not sure." He destroyed us for uncertainty. "I wanted to be honest," he added quickly. "I want to work through this." I stared at him, the man who had shared my bed while keeping another woman on hold. "Thanks for the clarity," I said. "That's it?" he asked, panic flickering across his face. "Reese, say something." "You cheated on me to test your feelings for your ex," I replied evenly. "And you're still undecided. There's nothing left to discuss." I stood, placed cash on the table, and picked up my coat. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Home," I said, to think. He didn't follow me. That was the first choice he made that night, and it wasn't the last. I didn't go home that night. I drove until the streets blurred, until my hands stopped shaking on the steering wheel. I ended up on my friend Hannah's couch, staring at the ceiling while my phone lit up again and again with Evan's name. I didn't answer a single call. Sometime around 6 a.m., exhaustion won. When I woke up, there were 17 missed calls and a handful of texts that traced his emotional freefall in real time. "We need to talk. Please don't do this. I told you because I love you. Reese, answer me." I went home mid-morning, deliberately choosing a time I knew he'd be at work. The apartment felt wrong the second I stepped inside. Not empty, contaminated. Everything looked the same, but I could feel the lie under the surface. His jacket was still slung over the chair, his shoes still by the door. The coffee mug he'd used that morning sat in the sink, ringed with dried foam. 12 hours earlier, this had been our shared life. Now it felt like a set. I walked slowly, letting the truth settle into the walls. I wasn't angry yet. I was surgical. That's when I saw his laptop. Open. Unlocked. Sitting on the kitchen counter like it had nothing to hide. I shouldn't have touched it. I did anyway. An email thread filled the screen. The subject line made my chest tighten. This weekend felt dangerous in the best way. Lila's words. I read without blinking. "I forgot how natural this feels. Like we never stopped. I need time to think. Please give me space while I figure out what I want." Evan's reply sat beneath it. "Take all the time you need. I'm here." Here, while sleeping in my bed. While letting me plan a future with him. I took out my phone and photographed the screen. Not for revenge. For clarity. For proof that I wasn't imagining anything. Then I closed the laptop, and I started packing. 4 hours. That's how long it took me to dismantle 3 years. I worked methodically, folding his clothes, boxing his books, separating his kitchen gadgets from mine. I labeled every box neatly, like I was preparing a shipment, not erasing a relationship. No tears, no pauses. When I finished, the apartment felt lighter. I called a locksmith. By 3 p.m., the locks were changed. $200. Best money I'd spent in years. At 4:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Evan, leaving work early. Can we talk when I get home?" I didn't respond. At 5:37 p.m., the call started. 125. Then the texts. My key isn't working. Are you home? Reese, this isn't funny. I was back at Hannah's, watching the unraveling through my screen. At 6:48 p.m., the message changed tone. Did you seriously change the locks? Where are my things? By 8 p.m., frustration turned into entitlement. You can't just throw me out. I live there too. No, you stayed there. The lease had always been in my name. That detail mattered now. At 10 p.m., Hannah's phone rang. Her sister, who worked with Evan, had just run into him. He was pacing the sidewalk outside my building, furious, humiliated, stunned that consequences had arrived without negotiation. He really thought he could confess and just come back, Hannah said, shaking her head. I watched my phone light up again. Please, Reese, I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a date. This was a plan. I put the phone face down and let the silence do the talking. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. By the third day, Evan stopped apologizing. That's when I knew this wasn't about remorse. It was about access. Day 1 after the lock change, he sat in the building lobby for hours. I found out later from the doorman, who politely warned him that if he didn't leave, security would be called. Evan left in a huff, muttering about how unfair I was being. Unfair. Day 2, he showed up at my office. The receptionist buzzed my desk. There's a man here asking for you, says it's urgent. I didn't even ask who it was. Tell him I'm in meetings all day, I said. I wasn't. I just wasn't available to be manipulated. That afternoon, my phone rang again, this time with a name I hadn't seen in years. Diane Cole, Evan's mother. Reese, honey, she began gently. Evan is devastated. He says you won't even talk to him. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Mrs. Cole, I said calmly, Evan slept with his ex-girlfriend. He planned it. When he told me, he said he wasn't sure if he wanted to be with me or her. There was a long pause. He didn't say that, she finally replied. There's a lot he didn't say, I answered. Another silence, heavier this time. Oh, she whispered. I see. He's an adult, I continued. He made adult choices. Now he needs adult solutions. I understand, she said quietly. I'm sorry, Reese. That call ended something Evan had been protecting carefully. His version of the story. Day 4, he tried outsourcing guilt. A text came through from an unfamiliar number. Unknown. Hey, Reese, this is Lila. Evan's really struggling. He's not eating. He keeps saying you won't listen. Maybe you could talk to him? I stared at the screen. The woman he slept with to test his feelings was now advocating on his behalf. I typed once, me. You can have him. Then I blocked the number. Day 5 brought reinforcements. I was in the grocery store, reaching for almond milk, when I felt a presence too close behind me. Reese. I turned to see Evan, unshaven, exhausted, and beside him, his older sister, Marissa. This has gone far enough, Marissa said sharply. Evan made a mistake, but you're being cruel. I looked at Evan. He couldn't meet my eyes. I didn't take his things, I said evenly. I packed them. They're safe. He has nowhere to live, Marissa shot back. He had somewhere to sleep when he booked a weekend with his ex, I replied. That's not my emergency. Evan finally spoke. Reese, I choose you. I want to fix this. I studied his face. The panic, the calculation, the fear of loss, rather than the shame of betrayal. You don't get to choose me now, I said. You made your choice already. It was just sex, he insisted. It didn't mean anything. If it didn't mean anything, I asked quietly, why did you need it to decide whether you wanted me? Silence. Marissa looked between us, understanding dawning too late. That night, Evan texted one last attempt. I'm not giving up on us. I typed back once. You gave up first. And then I blocked him. 2 weeks after the dinner. 2 weeks of ignored calls, blocked numbers, and Evan exhausting every possible angle of access. That morning I woke up calm. Not numb, resolved. I printed the photo I'd taken of Evan's email exchange with Lila. Then I printed 2 more copies. I slid them into a manila envelope and wrote his name across the front in clean, careful handwriting. Downstairs, the building manager unlocked the storage room for me without asking questions. He'd already heard enough. I stacked Evan's boxes neatly in the lobby. Clothes, books, shoes, everything he'd brought into my life and taken for granted, lined up like evidence. I taped the envelope to the largest box. Inside, I included a note. Evan, your belongings are here. Building management has asked they be picked up by the end of the week. Attached is your email conversation with Lila, where you asked her for space while deciding what happens next. You chose to test your feelings. I chose not to be an option. Do not contact me again. Reese. I walked back upstairs without looking back. At 2:07 p.m., my phone exploded. How could you do this? Those emails were private. This is humiliating. Anyone could see that. I didn't respond. At 3:30 p.m., Hannah called me, laughing so hard she could barely speak. "Reese," she gasped. "The building manager just asked Evan why his stuff was in the lobby with cheating emails attached." I closed my eyes and let out a slow breath. Apparently, Evan had tried to argue, tried to downplay, tried to spin. But the printed words didn't lie. By evening, the fallout spread. Marissa texted, "This went too far. He's embarrassed. Everyone knows." "Good." His mother called again later that night, her voice heavy. "I read the emails," she said quietly. "I had no idea he planned this. Reese, I'm so disappointed in him." "That's why I changed the locks," I replied. "He wasn't honest with anyone." "I understand now," she said. "I'm sorry you were put in this position." "So was I, but not anymore." I found out later that Evan had called Lila after seeing the boxes, looking for comfort. She didn't answer. When she finally did, she told him she didn't want the drama and that whatever clarity she thought she needed, she had it now. He lost both of us in the same afternoon. Funny how clarity works. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the silence clean and intentional. No buzzing phone, no wondering where he was, no negotiating my worth. Just peace. The apartment felt like mine again. Not because Evan's things were gone, but because the lie was. For the first time in weeks, I woke up without that dull ache in my chest, the one that comes from sensing something is wrong but refusing to name it. The air felt lighter, honest, quiet in a way that didn't feel lonely. Evan tried one last time. A new number, a single message. "I never meant to hurt you, I just needed to understand my feelings." I stared at it for a long moment before deleting it. Clarity doesn't come from sleeping with someone else. It comes from facing the consequences of your choices. I heard through mutual friends that he'd been telling people I was cold, that I overreacted, that I could have handled it differently. Of course he did. People like Evan mistake boundaries for cruelty because they benefit from the absence of both. A week later, Hannah dragged me to a coffee shop I'd never been to before. I didn't want to go. She insisted. That's where I met someone who listened instead of deflecting, who didn't talk about exes like unfinished business, who didn't need to test loyalty to understand it. Revolutionary. I didn't rush anything. I didn't need to. I'd already reclaimed the most important thing, my self-respect. Evan wanted to know if he was over Lila. Turns out he wasn't. He also wanted to know if I'd tolerate being treated like a backup plan. Turns out I won't. I never yelled, never begged, never chased. I didn't need closure from him. I created it myself. By changing the locks, by packing the boxes, by enforcing the line he crossed and pretending not to notice. Some people think I was harsh. Those people are welcome to date someone who needs to sleep with their ex to figure out what they want. I'll stick with people who already know. Sometimes the universe gives you clarity over Italian food, in the form of a confession you didn't ask for. What you do with that clarity, that's the real test. I passed.